G'day, welcome back to another episode of the A-League Couch Critics. It's Brad here, and before we get into it, I just want to say a big thank you to all the people that took the time to watch my video on MacArthur FC and their new partnership with Northbridge FC. Big thank you for the people that watched it. We've got almost 900 views, and it's still ticking along quite well, but it's been easily one of the best viewed videos on our channel to date so far. So this week, I'm going to be chatting about, as the name of the video might suggest, the salary cap system we have in place in the A-League. And I thought also, as it's quite timely considering the announcement by Football Australia last week, I'm also going to touch on the transfer system, that we don't have in place in Australia, and hopefully it'll be in place in the coming year. So, the salary cap, if you're unfamiliar with Australian sport, it's basically in place in all our major sports leagues. The NRL, the AFL, the Big Bash League, the Super Rugby, and of course the A-League. Salary caps are quite common here in Australia. They're also quite common in the United States. All their major leagues, the NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey, basketball, soccer, they're all going on using it in America. But outside of Australia and America, they're very uncommon. You'd be hard-pressed to find one. I think there are a few rugby union competitions floating around in France or England that might have some kind of limitations on spending on players' salaries, but you'll have to double-check me for that one. So what is it? What is the salary cap? Well, as the name suggests, clubs have a cap on how much they can spend on players' salaries. The goal of the salary cap, at least the admin people the A-League would like to tell you, is to kind of like promote competitiveness and provide a bit of a balanced opportunity for teams to win the grand final. That might have been the case in the early years of the A-League, and if you have a look, 3 of the first 4 seasons were won by different clubs. But of late, 6, I think, of the past 7 grand finals, 5 of the past 6 grand finals have been won by either Sydney FC or Melbourne Victory. So that competitiveness of being on a balanced playing field is not necessarily been relevant for the past few seasons of the A-League. Currently, clubs are capped on how much they can pay their players in the A-League, and for the 2020-21 season, it's $2.1 million, and that's quite a drop from last year's total of 3.2. So within that salary cap, clubs can spend. They have to spend within those means, except on 3 players, so they can spend what they like on an international marquee, an Australian marquee, and a junior marquee. And also that drop in the salary cap from last year, it's been almost over $1 million drop in the salary cap from last season. That came about mainly because of Fox Sports renegotiating their deal, which saw a lot of less investment coming in from Fox Sports. Obviously, they cut down a bit, obviously, because of the current COVID crisis. So the major issues with the salary caps that are quite relevant in the A-League is sometimes clubs just can't afford to keep players. When you've got so many good players on the roster, you have to pick and choose about which ones you're going to keep. And that's also quite relevant in the NRL. They have a lot of the similar issues. There's also issues that if a player leaves for another A-League club, their original club can't be compensated. So that's where the transfer system comes in. So players moving between different clubs. So say if someone from Adelaide went to Western United, they can't pay transfer fees. They have to either be coming out of contract or end up breaking their contract. And so issues like that came up in recent times with the likes of James Torrisi going from Adelaide to the Wanderers. And Newcastle player, name escapes me. Oh yes, Bernie Abini also going to the Wanderers. So that's caused a lot of frustration, especially towards the Wanderers, but the Wanderers aren't the first club to do something like that, and I'm sure they won't be the last. But exciting news. It looks like there's going to be a transfer system introduced in Australia in the coming weeks. Oh, not the coming weeks, the coming year, hopefully, we'll have one. The Football Australia announced kind of like a white paper, kind of like a draft of a proposed transfer system. I had a bit of a look at a Sydney Morning Herald article by Michael Lynch, and he kind of sums up kind of explains how this transfer system is going to work. So currently, he goes on about, at present, there is no transfer system between A-League clubs which is why in recent times there's been several cases of players agitating for their contracts to be terminated under mutual consent so they can move to the club of their preference. As I mentioned, Bernie Abini and James Troisi are some of the players that come to mind. Football Australia bosses believe that if clubs are given financial incentives to develop players to a higher standard, the sport here will produce better quality players who will not only command fees in the international market, but boost the Socceroos' chances at World Cups. If it is successful, Australian clubs could generate tens of millions of dollars in overseas sales to put themselves on par with countries in the Asian region. So obviously that news is very positive. Tens of millions of dollars into a game and a sport that's been really struggling financially in recent years. And I mean, that's kind of been the issue. We've always been talking about football in Australia is just financial issues. James Johnson, the CEO of Football Australia, he's brought a lot of positivity and a lot of encouragement looking forward to the sport. And if this can go forward, this proposed transfer system, I think it'll be massive for the sport. I think right down to the NPL levels and even further below, clubs can finally start being rewarded financially by the players they develop. Instead of, an NPL player moving on to an A-League, and I think, clubs can only be compensated for, I think we're talking about $1,000, $10,000, which is nothing. And, if clubs can be financially rewarded, it'd be so great because they can continue to pour more money into their junior systems, knowing the kind of potential money they can make out of it. In terms of the income generated from transfer fees in 2019, Football Australia released some kind of figures on where we stack up against the rest of the world. So, when we're talking about clubs that are kind of in the same area as us, countries, they're in the kind of same area as us. Canada, approximately $30 million they made in transfer fees. Japan, $29.6 million. South Korea, $22.6 million. Saudi Arabia, $22 million. And then we get to Australia, $1.9 million. New Zealand, $1 million. We're not even in the game with some of these other countries near us, like Japan and South Korea, though. These are some of the leagues, we're trying to fight up against. We're trying to be one of the top leagues in Asia, and we're just nowhere near it in terms of transfer fees. And it's got to change. It's got to change. And with the transfer system, hopefully we'll see more clubs generating more money for the players they develop. And the salary cap, well, if we get more money into the sport, maybe the salary cap will go up, or even maybe the salary cap might be removed or it might be reinvented. I still think, you've got to be mindful in a competition that's a closed shop. And at the moment, it is a closed shop. There is no promotion and relegation. You don't want the top clubs to just keep pouring money into it. You look at, clubs like Man City in Chelsea in England. They only got big off rich owners that just spent. And I don't know if we want that in Australia. The top clubs always find their way to the top. Sydney FC, Melbourne Victory, they'll always find their top. The bigger clubs will always find their way to the top. But maybe there kind of has to be something that makes sure we don't have the top clubs spending ridiculous amount of money on transfer fees and on juniors that are up and coming. But, I think the salary cap will have its place in a closed shop in the A-League until we introduce a second division. Then maybe we might rethink the need for a salary cap, or think about a different kind of salary cap, or the way we restrict clubs on spending, because I think it's helpful that we do restrict clubs on how much they spend. We don't want them to spend ridiculous amounts of money. Maybe spend within their means, something like the financial fair play. I mean, what it's meant to be at its heart. I don't think the financial fair play is really followed in England. In Europe, especially for the big clubs, they can spend what they want. But I would like some kind of like a safe net. You don't want clubs to just go broke from spending ridiculous amounts of money. But anyway, let us know what you think about that video in the comments, and let us know what you think about this exciting news about a potential transfer system being introduced in Australia. It's definitely encouraging for me, and hopefully for all those people out there that are watching, hopefully you find that news quite encouraging as well. Or maybe you don't. Let us know what you think of the proposed transfer system, and let us know what you think of the salary cap. Should it stay? Should it go? Should it be rethought in the next few years? Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you like the video if you've learned something new, and if you've seen a few of our videos, please consider subscribing. We're getting close to 200 views now, and we'd really love to hit 200 in the next couple of months. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.